Hey, everybody, welcome to today's webinar. We're so glad that you're here with us today. If you've been with us before, you know that we just want to provide value for you guys, whether that's through our webinar trainings, our podcasts, our emails, or just our services. Well, today we have the privilege of bringing on one of our friends outside of Resmark, and he's going to provide a lot of expertise and value on a really hot topic, AI. You've heard us talk about AI before. AI isn't just one of those things so that we could talk about once and then we could check it off our list. It keeps moving, and so does the way that it fits inside our tour business. So, with that, we are so excited to have Kelsey Toner from Guest Focus with us today. Kelsey is the founder of Guest Focus, and since 2015, he's coached more than 2,000 tour operators across 75 countries. He spent 2 decades in this industry as a coach, a guide trainer, and a tour leader. Keep saying tour leader. So Kelsey talks from the field, and that's why so many tour operators really love working with him. A couple of quick housekeeping notes before I hand it over. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm going to be monitoring them, and if the time is right, I'll bring them up to Kelsey while he's presenting, but also we're going to leave some time at the end for Q&A. All right, with that, Kelsey, I'm going to pass it over to you.
No problem. Thank you for that warm intro, and thanks to Resmark and Nikki for the invitation. Let me know in the chat, find the chat first and foremost. Nice little chat bubble down there. Say hello. Let us know where you're tuning in from, maybe your business name. We want to make sure that you know this is going to be interactive. I'm going to have some questions for you, and then I'll be able to sort of shape some of the content that we share or some of the recommendations specific to ideally some of your challenges, some of your frustrations, maybe some of your goals when it comes to working with AI. And we know that everyone is on in a different place, in a different journey. And we're going to try and meet you where you're at here today, but maybe more than other sessions, also show you sort of the landscape of what's possible with a updated or maybe slightly more sophisticated approach to having AI become a thought partner, potentially even a multiplier in your business. Okay, starting to see some chat come through. Success. Let me put you up here so I'll be able to see this chat. All right, Craig, great to have you here from Jamaica. Matt from City Food Tours. Woo! Hey, Matt. Nick, Alaska, checking in. Howdy. Beautiful. Okay, let's kind of dive in. While we're doing this, I'm asking a lot of you already, but I'd love to hear what are some of your frustrations or challenges with AI right now and the way that you've been using it. You don't have to give a whole big backstory, but if you can share some of those in the chat, I think that's going to help. As I've got a couple slides to share, but more than just a presentation, I really want to one, actually give you some tools. So a huge part of this is like, hey, here's, depending on where you're at, a couple of things that you can take this, and after this workshop, have some really practical steps to take. Okay, so let's just do the quick share. But remember, the ask is, what is one of your challenges or frustrations right now when you're working with AI? Okay, let's go over here to window. Cool. So where to actually start with AI for your tour business? With this, we're just going to walk through a couple of levels. You'll probably recognize yourself in here. Only other thing I wanted to mention with our tour business coaching is that a huge part of why we did this is to not only take best practices from across our industry, but to really reach out to some of the thought leaders, some of the tour and activity business coaches, mentors, people who have built, scaled, and grown profitable and successful businesses, and create a mentorship layer that really just didn't exist in the industry. So you can get, for example, someone to work with you one-on-one, to be a sounding board, to be a second set of eyes on what you're doing, to help you navigate some of those challenges that we face every day. And so a huge part of the I think, success of Guest Focus have to give a shout out to our amazing coaching team. So we've got some 20 plus coaches across North America, Europe, and beyond. So big shout out to them. And they are a big part of, I think, why people love working with us at Guest Focus. All right. So I want you to walk away with a bit of a foundation steps you can start using, or maybe some inspiration and really practical things that you can do to maybe get more. Um, Most AI frustration comes from one overarching thing, but let's see if this is reflected in the chat, is that our AI doesn't really seem to know our business, or put another way, sometimes those generic answers. So let's see what you shared here, Craig. So I've just got another monitor. So this is, if you see me looking up over here, Craig says frustration is optimizing for it. Particularly understand now that JavaScript sides have issues ranking on Google AI platforms. Okay, so it sounds like, Craig, you're using AI to actually build out things like maybe landing pages, web properties, and being concerned that, hey, this is easier than ever, but hey, we also have to be thinking about how to not only rank in terms of SEO, but you've probably heard that term GEO. That seems to be the term that we're landing on for generative engine optimization, like how we're actually showing up inside of ChatGPT, inside of Claude, inside of Gemini, and those Google AI overviews. So optimizing for it. Yeah. And Craig, it's such a new space. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to, like, these models are changing all the time, and specifically for how we show up inside of them, what are the best ways to do that is shifting a lot. Matt, challenges I'm having to guide every prompt, notion, idea, direction of what it should do for me. I don't know what I don't know, and there's a lot more it could be doing for me, but yet to be discovered. Yeah. Yeah, Craig just clarified there, the JavaScript sites. Yeah, that was my assumption. Yeah, Matt, I think you're spot on. I think I highlight this, and we'll talk about these three levels, but a lot of people we are kind of engaging here at this chat level, right? Where we ask, we get an answer, but to me, it's really this game of ping pong, right? So where it's sort of like, I always have to initiate hitting the ball, so to speak, right? And then it goes ding, 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 and back and forth. And if at any point, as you're saying, Matt, we pull ourselves out of that, it really stops the whole process, right? And so what we're going to explore here is how we can move away from us always having to initiate things, and what that sort of system can look like. And Matt, hopefully we can give you some inspiration too of um, one, just how powerful these models have become, but how we can, towards the end of the presentation, you'll see getting into really scheduled tasks, independent action that can happen without your triggering it. So a lot of people were I say stuck in chat, but that's where most people are getting started. We talked about the ping pong. Every new thread often starts from zero. You ask, it answers. You explain, the repeat. The other thing you'll see a lot of, you can toggle this on, but most of the time it's defaulted on, but there's this big memory notion. So we're starting to say, okay, well, ChatGPT does seem to remember across threads. Or yeah, Claude, when I'm using it online especially, it's adding things to your memory. The challenge is, and what we hear from a lot of members and folks that we're talking to, is like, you're not super in control of what it remembers. It's not clear, or it's certainly not that easy to go in and really see how much context it knows about you. It's easy to get confused if you're like many people, or like an example like myself. I'm often running tasks or doing things on behalf of members, right? So Matt, I may have even put in like your business profile at some point. And so my memory, if I ChatGPT, let's say, it would be like, well, this guy seems to be running like 40 or 50 different tour businesses across Europe and Canada. Or like, I'm not entirely sure what this guy is doing. Or, hey, we share an account with our a partner or wife, right? And then like, it can get very confused, and we don't have a lot of control. If anyone else who's here or just jumped in after we got started, let us know in the chat what your biggest frustration right now is when using AI, or a challenge. What we're often here is a lot of copy pasting, right? Let me know if you relate to that, but we're like pasting in all kinds of things. We're having to do it over and over again. When we start a new thread, we have to kind of take a beat to think about this. Like, hey, is this inside of a project? Like, what context do I have already? Well, I uploaded that inside of a thread, but was it not uploaded to like a project level? So there's a lot of like uncertainty, and I think that leads to that frustration of getting generic outputs or having to repeat yourself a lot is maybe another way of framing it. Like, hey, we already covered this. Hey, we talked about this. Hey, this isn't my brand voice. I said stop using those M dashes. Um, and so not trusting what it remembers, not knowing what it's remembering or what context it has, right? So some of you probably started playing around with projects. Let me know in the chat. Scott's chiming in with a challenge here. Great. Different models giving very different answers and guidance. Yeah. Yeah. Super interesting. Scott, so that we could reframe that as potentially a strength, but also, Scott, you could probably see how that could be related to the initial thing, that the challenge that we're talking about is like, well, what context, what memory, what knowledge about you, your business, your clients, your products, your workflows does it have when it's answering that question? So that can be part of the difference. Okay, so projects, for those that aren't familiar, projects are essentially a way that inside of almost any large language model, there's something called projects, and the idea is it's a container for context. And this is definitely taking a step up, right? Where we're saying, okay, I'm now in control of what context is going to be in there, especially if this is for a particular project, a specific task. So I know people, and you might be able to relate to this, but like, hey, here's one for social media, right? Or a specific workflow of like, maybe it's creating posts or coming up with copy that. Maybe I have one for responding to reviews, right? Maybe I have another one, a project that is specific to I don't know, helping you with preparing something for your bookkeeper or like a financial analysis. And so this is great. And you do have more control here. So two things that we highly recommend, and this might be your first sort of practical takeaway, is really think about, for every single project that you're running, these are two pieces of context that we highly recommend that you upload. One is a pretty detailed business profile, like something that's probably closer to 8 to 12 pages that goes into a fair amount of detail about your business. And then two, almost always, it's not necessarily the case, depending on the project. Like if hey, I'm really working on an HR issue or a financial analysis, this may be less relevant, but even still, I'd probably default to including this, is a really detailed customer avatar or ideal target guest avatar. Again, same sort of thing. So in the chat, we're going to share this link here. Abby, if we can pop that in. These are some of the tools that we have for you here. So we share these with our members in our coaching program, but we are making them available more widely. So this business profile builder, if we click on it, hopefully this loads up. Yep, great. This is actually going to give you an AI prompt to help you create this document. And so basically the prompt, you're going to come in here and then you're going to copy all of this big, long prompt. I think it says, yeah, down to like here. And you're going to paste that in, and then you're going to sort of give it the context that it needs. It's going to interview you. And then you're ultimately going to have a document that we can use whenever we are starting a new project or whenever we really want to provide more context to get a better result. Yeah, Abby's got the link in there. Beautiful. And then we can do the same thing with a customer avatar. And if you've already got something like this, then great. We upload it. It can be enhanced. One of the things that you'll see about this profiles, it goes into a lot more detail than we might have in there. So for example, the competitive landscape, a destination profile, some of your direct competitors, indirect alternatives. What are some of your competitive advantages, competitive vulnerabilities, market context? If we scroll up, there's obviously a lot in here around your brand voice and personality, a bit of company overview, giving a sense of the scale of your business, because this will all change the answers that you get when using this inside of AI. Okay, Abby's just going to check that out. Thanks for the patience there, gang. If that page is not being found, I do a quick refresh. Might just be that redirect is not working. I'll try this. Mike, see if that works for you. Abby's just going to double check for you. Cool. So hopefully you get a sense of how this is going to be used. At the end of that process, you're going to have these two documents, and this alone, even working inside, I would say almost any of your projects, or again, if you want to take this back to the chat level, by uploading this context is really going to help you get better results. Full stop. You're going to get sharper answers, more relevant answers. Think about the same question, but hey, we're a $10 million a year tour operator here in Vancouver, or we're $250,000 a year, right? The recommendations, the output, the response that it gets, that you will get, will shift depending on that context, right? Or it'll stop making assumptions. Okay. So if we want to use projects well, this is a way that you can level up that game. Run your tasks inside of the project, and each new thread that you start inside of a project, I could even, just to really hit this. Okay, that's not going to work easily for. I'm in. Okay, it figured it out here. Okay. That's going to make this extra clear, right? So when we go over here, this is often what we're talking about. If you're inside of Gemini, they I believe are still called gems, but same sort of idea. Projects are widely used by ChatGPT as well. And so when you create a new project, you can give it this context here, but if we just go in here, you don't have access to this project. This is not, I'm not logged in properly, but basically when you go in here, you can add files or context. Yeah, here it is, files. And so that means every time you start a new task inside that project, it's going to have the context of those files. So that's level. Most people, honestly, by now have either played with that a little bit, but we still have some challenges. So if we come down here, you're still going to hit a wall. And some of you might be hitting this too. Challenge is context doesn't travel between those projects, right? We're often still re-explaining a lot more than we might like. We often, let me know if you relate to this, but like you go back to this one thread where you're like, oh yeah, I got this amazing output from that particular thread inside a project. So I go back to that same thread and I'm just like, we'll just pick up the conversation. It'll be just like before, right? And guess what? It's not like before. That might be because the context window is getting very large. That conversation is quite long. Something for you to keep in mind is every time you type in a new text or a comment or a question or a query, it, meaning the large language model, will reread everything in that thread. Even if it's like, hey, this looks good, enter. It rereads everything. So one, it's good. Well, we'll talk about that towards the end, but bear that in mind. And so one of the things that happens when you keep coming back and revisiting threads is it has to make a decision around what context to keep. It's going to compress that window. It has to say, hey, there's a lot in here that I'm going to have to let go of to be able to try and discern what's important. And so you will get deteriorating results. You'll have context drift. You'll have an AI deciding for you, instead of, again, you being in control in that long thread. What should I leave out? What should I focus on, etc. So it's not reliable to go back to those same threads. And if you haven't experienced this yet, just know that it is not a reliable way to get those results, is keep going back to that same thread. Not only is it more expensive, but you will very often see deteriorating results. And so you can kind of get around this by thinking at the project level, well, I want to make sure every new thread has this context. However, we can still be frustrated by feedback that you gave in one thread not being captured in the next thread. Does that make sense? So we're working inside of a project. We say, hey, stop using so many friggin' M dashes, those big lines that ChatGPT is so fond of. And I start a new thread and it didn't remember that I didn't update the project context, if that makes sense, right? So now it's going to do that same thing again because it doesn't have access to those other threads. Nikki knows what I'm talking about. So this is where we start introducing the next level, or if you want to improve the results, let's say it that way, that you are getting from your large language model and your use of AI as an entrepreneur in your day-to-day work. And this is moving towards something that we could broadly understand it as a context engineering. So before, you may have heard that term of like prompt engineering. The better the prompt, the better the answer. And that's true to some extent. But really what we're starting to appreciate is the better the context, the better the response. We have to really start thinking about engineering, or making sure when I'm asking something from a large language model, does it have all the relevant context consistently? And trying to build out a system that will allow us to have that improve over time. So we've chosen the term AI brain. You might see this online, or if you're reading about AI and different ways to use this, a sort of like wiki, like a little mini Wikipedia just for like you and your business context, maybe your personal life context. Same sort of thing. But I like the AI brain analogy because it helps extend into the rest of the body, which we'll talk about in a couple more slides. But the whole idea is to give your AI a brain. And the way that our brain works is like, it's not that you have to have all of that context for every single prompt, but we want to build a system where it has access to that context if it needs it, or if you ask it to use that context. And what's amazing is these models are getting so much more powerful that they're getting really good at having a look at what context you've provided and say, hey, I can ignore 95% of this, but these things are actually super useful, right? And so part of what we're doing with this AI brain is trying to close the gap between what's in your head, what's in your documents, whether that's in something like Google Drive or in Microsoft folders, or in your inbox, your business information and your information about your day-to-day tasks. Think about it. It's scattered across all kinds of different software, isn't it? Some of it's in your booking software. Some of it's in a CRM or an email service provider. Some of it's in like a spreadsheet where you're juggling a guide schedule. Some of it's over here. And a lot of it is up here in your head, right? And this is where the frustration is, because up here you have a clear idea of, for example, your org structure, right? Of who's responsible for what, of what tool you would use to go get that piece of information to complete this thing. You're doing all of that up in your head. And so what we want to do is, again, close the gap. That if your large language model has that same kind of access and understanding, the more effective the large language model is going to be, right? So that's what I mean by context engineering. What does this actually mean? What is this AI brain? There's a few different ways you can build it. Where we've landed, what we recommend with our coaching program, and we've got a prompt to help you with this, if you want to take this next step with us, is you can see here, we've got our AI brain builder prompt right here. We'll come back to it and we'll kind of talk through what it's doing. But just before we do that, what ultimately is it? Well, it is text files. Simply put, what we're going to try and do is have a folder on your computer. Now, again, we can move this around. We'll talk about once you have your AI brain. We want to build it in such a way that you're not tied to a particular large language model or a particular system. So the best practice that the people who are really getting next level results out of AI is using text files. Now, the markdown files, this .md, is a very simple text file. That's all it is. If you can open up something on like text edit, it just strips out a lot of the unnecessary fluff and extra code and stuff that is in files like docx or in Google Docs or other things. So it's very simple and it's very efficient for LLMs or large language models to ultimately read it. And so all this is a folder, and inside of that folder are text files, some that have instructions, right? You may have heard the term, if you use Claude MD, these are essentially the first text file that it reads, and it gives you some instructions. That instructions or instructions.md inside of a project are your project instructions. So before it does anything inside of a project, it's like, well, let's read these project instructions every single time. And then you can put really important things that it's like, hey, we got to make sure this. So we're going to have to build out some instructions. It's always going to read that file. Then essentially we're building out an index or kind of map of, hey, here's the rest of the brain. Here's where you can go to find information. And then all kinds of context files, right? And that's where you, this information is going to be stored and captured. So you might be thinking, oh my gosh, do I have to write up all these text files? Absolutely not. We've got these large language models to actually help us with this process and build it out. I've created 0 markdown files myself in terms of, hey, new text edit, upload this. What I am doing is working inside the large language model with, again, we've developed a very specific AI brain building prompt and process, but it is doing all of that organization for you. That's what's incredible, is we're going to get some help with this. So like I said, the markdown file is just a plain text file. What's really nice about that is that you can read it. You can open it up and have a look inside and actually see what's there. And you could audit, and I regularly do audit some of these markdown files where I'll open them up, have a look, make sure there's nothing missing the mark in there. Again, the whole goal here is to shrink the gap between what's in your head, the knowledge that's scattered across all these different places, and your AI. Basically, the ultimate goal there is, of course, to stop that re-explaining. Okay. So the AI brain building prompt, which you've got a copy of, you can find it at the same link in here. On this landing page, you've got all of these different things: profile builder, avatar builder, and here's that AI brain builder. So when you come over here, you'll see there's a few things in here. The prompt one is how to build out that AI brain step by step. It's going to interview you about your business. It's going to give you the option to connect in your existing tools and software, and then organizes everything into structure so that your AI can access it. Why do this? It's worth taking a beat to talk about this. Mainly, like we just covered, stop re-explaining, right? No more uploading those same documents about your tours, your team, your brand voice to every new project or every new session. We can delegate real work, not just one-off tasks. Once your AI knows about your business, you can assign it repetitive workflows. We can give it particular skills that are going to allow you to save time, save money, help you be more profitable. The knowledge compounds. This is a big part of the recommendation of switching over to, you can do this in a couple different tools. You can, in theory, build an AI brain in a one-shot inside of the online, like ChatGPT, like ChatGPT.com or Claude.ai. But to really, really have your brain shine, we strongly recommend using Claude Cowork. If you're a more technical user, you can definitely do this inside of Claude Code. And so these are slightly different tools, but one of the main reasons that we want to use something like Claude Cowork, or that's our recommendation, is that it will be able to update those markdown files. It'll be able to add to that AI brain over time. When you give it feedback or instructions, it can update that. That will not be the case if we're doing this inside of a project, or if we're doing this like over here, we talked about on Claude.ai, if we're doing this from a web browser, we're not going to be able to do that. So this is where the shift happens. Why do the AI brain? It is portable. I think I put this in the slide. I don't know if it's, I can't remember if it got into a slide or not, but the notion is we want to give you this skill of this context engineering. We want you to have more control over your data and that information. And think of that skill as like learning to drive. But then we can take that with your skill of learning to drive, and you can get in a Sprinter van. You could get into a Toyota Corolla, right? We can move between those different vehicles. And so that's the other thing I want you to appreciate, is that when you're in charge of that AI brain, I can swap out. If I don't want to use Claude Cowork anymore, I could switch over to something like Perplexity Computer, which is another tool that's emerging as like a multi-agent complex processes, or a ChatGPT agents. If you want to go full on into creating autonomous agents, can I use this same context to set up my AI executive assistant or an AI employee? Absolutely, right? So this is a big part of why we want this as text files, and we want it to be on your computer. We don't have that same platform lock-in. We're future ready. Right now, our recommendation is do this inside Claude Cowork. That might change in time. And we're definitely open to exploring or taking different intelligence layers and applying it to your to your AI brain and seeing what it can do. What we're really doing here, hopefully we've got a prompt here. As we get over to here, we then can start moving away from that ping pong, right? We can start thinking about scheduled tasks. We can start to think about multiple agents working on something simultaneously. We can start to think about the potential of AI employees or AI specialists who have a very specific role in your company, and they have goals where they're going to be working on this while you're sleeping, while you're walking the dog. And to have success, we need to have this next level, right? So hopefully this is making sense. Quick note on privacy. You might rightfully be wondering, hey, I'm a little bit nervous. Should I be nervous, potentially, about sharing this much information? And everyone, is going to need to answer this for themselves. The perspective that we like to offer is all of that sensitive information for 99% of the businesses out there, at least ones that are, for example, using a booking software, your customer information, their credit card info is already in the cloud, right? It's already, you're already accepting a certain degree of risk. All somebody needs is to figure out your password or hack that account, and they have access to your booking software or your CRM tool, or obviously someone getting access to your Google Drive, right? Or your financial things. Almost all of us in the modern era are accepting some degree of risk, and we're taking these companies at their word when they have their terms of service that, hey, Google's not going to use all of this information that is private to my tour business, right? And either share it or abuse it or this type of thing. So you have those same terms of service with a lot of these large language models. Some rule of thumb is that sensitive personal information, like what might be an example? Do I give AI, in my AI context, information about the credit cards in our business? No, not yet. That might change in the future. We might get into a point where, like, hey, my AI agents almost certainly will be able to maybe make purchases or do sort of financial transactions on your behalf. That world's probably coming. We'll figure out the controls and how to do that. But right now, yeah, I'm not putting that credit card information in. But the trade-off here is if I'm not comfortable sharing, for example, my financial data, my cash flow, my projections, my general ledger or profit and loss statements, then there's some real trade-offs, right? Especially if I want to get some help with analysis, if I want to get better answers to, as a thought partner, if I'm working on a new marketing campaign and thinking about goals and thinking about risk and risk tolerance, if it also has the context of our cash flow, some of our projections, if it has access to our detailed 90-day sprint or goals for our business, it's obviously going to be able to give much more relevant, thoughtful, and powerful answers. So there's a trade-off with all of this. You can find the sort of terms of service for most of these companies. It's easy to find right there in usually down where your profile is. And there's a toggle in most of them where you can, it'd be probably hard to find quickly, but where it says, hey, turn this off as soon as you sort of move up to a paid plan on any of these. Turn off the ability to train the larger model on this data. That's something that we typically recommend. So anyway, everyone's got a different degree of comfort with this, but just know the more context it has about you and your life, your business, the more powerful it's going to become. Just as an example, like I don't always have trouble remembering family birthdays. So it was scattered all over. It was in different calendars and emails and various things. And so I finally got all of my family members, like anniversaries, mom and dad's birthdays, my brother's kids' birthdays. I got that all, and it's in the brain. And now it's pulling it up. It's like, oh, hey, by the way, your wife's birthday is in, 2 weeks. It has that context. And I share that sometimes in terms of the personal context too, because so many of us are that overlap between, hey, could I use AI to help get these like monotonous or admin heavy personal things done? And I found, yes, this definitely helps. And to me, that line is makes a lot of sense when it has not only the context about the business, but also maybe your personal life, your personal goals, other hobbies that you have, other side projects, passion projects that you have. This can all live inside that AI brain. Okay, so pick this step that fits, right? We don't want to push you too far, but this is a good time to make sure we've got lots of time for Q&A. And I'm happy to sort of demonstrate and talk more about the AI brain. This is something that we built for Guest Focus. I've been using it as a daily driver, and it has shifted entirely the way that I approach work. And I can talk a little bit more about the difference between something like Claude Cowork and some of those online things. Cool. Thanks, Nikki. So start dropping any questions that you've got in here. We're just going to come back. I'll keep an eye on those questions. So here's your AI brain builder prompt. This is a long doc, but let's talk for a beat why use this Claude Cowork, which again is the desktop app. And if you have been using ChatGPT, I would highly recommend. Obviously, Claude is an Anthropic are in the news a lot right now. They just released this Fable model. Claude, in many ways, is leading the pack right now. And if I think they've got a promotion right now that's running as well, where they've like doubled your context, and you have access to this new model for the next something like 2 weeks or something like this. So it's a great time to test out Claude Cowork if you have not done it before. Sam says, do you recommend paying for all AI plans? Could you make that any more specific there, Sam? I just recently canceled my ChatGPT subscription. I was paying for all three, partly because I really wanted to be experimenting with all the new features were coming out. But through my Google Workspace, I had access to Gemini. Claude became, after shifting to this AI brain model, the daily driver, which I'll talk more about. And then, so I did just cancel ChatGPT, but it doesn't mean that I'm not keeping an eye on what they're doing and giving them a test run. But very likely what's going to be happening is with this AI brain and sort of system, you're going to be able to swap out which models you ultimately want to leverage. And as you'll see, sometimes there'll be more and more specialization of models. Like, hey, for this particular task, I actually want this specialized model, but it's still going to need to pull in that context, right? And so you might have heard this term of like an orchestrator, where you use a higher, more capable model to make a plan of attack. And then when you go to execute that, Claude Cowork actually does this super effectively. It'll spin up multiple sub agents. Some of those agents are like less powerful models or more specialized models, like, oh, we need to use this image generation model. Oh, we're going to use this other thing. And you don't have to actually get into the weeds about deciding between models, as long as you have that sort of orchestrator higher level intelligence model on top. So Sam, feel free to ask or clarify if you want me to answer that slightly differently. So why Claude Cowork? It can create and edit files on your computer. And the big shift there is that the AI brain and the context improves and grows. The brain and nervous system analogy is, okay, that's the AI brain, but the connectors, we may have connected in, all basically large language models have these connectors now. And those connectors, think of them as the nervous system, right? So that's going to go out and, hey, I've got a connector into my MailChimp. I've got a connector into my email inbox. I've got a connector into my Drive folder, cloud storage, whatever that. Maybe I connect into Notion if you're using Notion for organizing and storing a lot of your information. Whatever tools you ultimately use, the more that you connect in, the more powerful your this AI system is going to be, right? And so think of, some people ask about these text files, like, well, isn't that just sort of a snapshot? of the business, right? It's writing something in a text file, but hey, up here, that's my cash flow. My cash flow is changing all the time. Or hey, that's my guide scheduling tool that lives in this cloud and is, let's say, a Google sheet, and it's changing all the time. Part of what your AI brain will do is says, hey, if you need the most up-to-date guide schedule, go look at this document, right? You know that. You know that it's changing all the time. And guess what? Now your AI brain knows that. So it's not about taking a snapshot of that or constantly having to dump that into a text file. The text file says, hey, use our Google Drive connector. Go look at that Google sheet if you need to access the schedule, right? So strong recommendations. And through this AI brain building prompt, it's going to encourage you to put those connectors in. We'll talk about skills, scheduled tasks, and multiple agents in a moment. But keep in mind that Claude Cowork and the Claude.ai or the web version, these are different things. Okay, these are different products. They don't actually share between them. So that's one slight adjustment is when you have this Cowork set up, you shift your thinking a little bit to my desktop computer, or in my case, my laptop, is where this AI brain lives. And those new conversations or new threads, they don't sync to the cloud everywhere. So that's one adjustment to make. But the trade-off is you get this updating, this ability to update your brain with new context, to keep it, add in new things that weren't relevant. Like, here's an example. So I realized at some point, I didn't have all of my client testimonials, or I probably just hadn't taken the time to pull all of those testimonials into one place. Wouldn't that be amazing? How many, I've been on probably our to-do list, some like way down there, like, yeah. They're on Google, they're on Facebook, they're over here, they're all over the place. But could I have one centralized place inside of the AI brain where it pulls all that? And so I just said, hey, we don't have this context. There's a couple connectors that I'll share. Nikki's got a great question. One of those connectors is something called Appify. I'll show it to you, but that essentially gives your AI brain all kinds of tools. And so through Appify and an Appify account, it just went out and scraped all my reviews. We had like 100 plus reviews on the guest focus Google thing, but Google makes it really difficult to go in, or we'd hire a scraper or an engineer or somebody who knew enough about code. Within like 5 minutes, my AI brain was able to figure that out. It was like, yeah, hey, I can go do this. And then it pulled in the reviews from all the different places. And now that context lives in the AI brain. So now when I'm thinking about writing copy or writing bullets, or if I want to draw from that language, that client language, I can now do that. But I didn't do that when I initially built my AI brain. So I want this brain to improve, to update and change. Okay, let's take a beat to go over and check in with the chat. Craig, what are the best use cases for the different AI tools, Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT, Perplexity, especially for assisting with tasks related to tour companies? On the flip side, for people searching, which is used more. On the flip side, for people searching, which is used more to, I see, research activities. Yeah, I don't have great data personally on this, but the instincts are 100% Gemini, right? Because if you think of how aggressively Google is rolling out those AI summaries that are now appearing almost always, at least in my experience, underneath the your Google search responses. They're taking a lot of real estate for that AI summary. And so just because Google has such a dominant market share, that's hugely important. But hey, guess what? ChatGPT recently crossed, what is it, like 1 billion monthly actives? So it's a new landscape compared to Google's daily users. It's still dwarfed. So a quick answer to that second part. The best use cases for all the different AI tools. So hopefully what you're hearing me say here is the tool matters less. For example, you build this AI brain, we give this sort of context, you build connectors. You could use Perplexity Computer, which is something is sort of new. Perplexity used to be very much focused on like, hey, we're the Google alternative, rigorous, deep research, lots of sources. And they pivoted, or they extended their functionality to something called Perplexity Computer, where their thing is like, hey, we can we can spin up all kinds of different agents. Hey, we're going to allow you to choose, do you want to use Claude for this? Do you want to use Nano Banana for image generation? Or do you want to use ChatGPT for image generation? Or, hey, let me decide. You can take all of this context and move it over to something like Perplexity Computer and get incredible results. You can take all of this and load it into Claude Code or Claude Cowork, which is the less technical version of Claude Code, basically, and get spectacular results. It's not so much the case that like, which one is better from what I've seen, like Perplexity Computer and Claude. Like obviously there's going to be some that benefit, but from particular feature set or one excels, aside from what I was saying, where Claude is typically pulling ahead with some of their models. Hopefully that answers a little bit. Nikki says, common connectors that you notice tour operators always using in Cowork. Yeah, let's change this a little bit. Why don't I open up Claude Cowork, and I can show you some of the connectors that I use, and you'll probably recognize, obviously, some of these. So let me go back to, I got to change the share screen. So I think this will work. Let's go screen, window. It's my Claude. All right, so this is here. So when you download the Claude desktop app, this is Cowork. This is the middle tab here. This is the sort of chat over on this side, and then this is Claude Code. And so Claude Code is really if you're into using terminal, if you're a developer, do a lot of time coding. But Cowork gets you majority of the functionality of Claude Code, but just in it's more oriented to non-technical people. Let's go over here to connectors, manage connectors. So you'll notice some of these. These are probably like the more common ones. Hopefully you guys can see my screen. Okay. Yeah. So like Gmail, your calendar, your Drive, absolutely makes a ton of sense. Connecting in your Slack or Teams allows not only for you to pull information from it, but it gives your agents the ability to take actions inside of these connectors. Zoom, we use for meetings. Monday, this could be a project project management solution. So like Monday, Asana, Trello, if you use one of those tools, if you use something like Notion or Confluence, where you're like, hey, here's where a lot of our business procedures live, those connectors are great. Entreport is our sort of all-in-one CRM and email management software. Zapier is really cool because a lot of us have used Zapier in the past to automate tasks. But if you were finding that you don't have a native way to connect into a tool that you have, if it connects to Zapier, you can access it, or more importantly, your AI agents and your AI tools can access that through Zapier. That's beyond the scope of what we're going to cover here today, but Zapier is great for covering, maybe more obscure tools that you haven't connected in. So now, it's quite complicated, but your CRM should 100% be connected in here. Not CRM, your booking software. So like if you use Fairharbor, if you use Peak, if you're using Resmark, more importantly, I don't know if Nikki, you can speak to connecting in. If you don't have there's a way that you can set it up through an API key or something called an MCP server. MCP, just think of the way that I sometimes explain MCP is it's like a translator, right? So you've got let's say Resmark's over here and it speaks in a certain language, and then you've got your AI model over here and it speaks in a certain language. And they may not be able to talk to each other, but the MCP server is essentially a translator where it says, here's a request coming in or an action that an agent wants to take, and it can translate through that MCP server, and then translate that so that Resmark could respond, right? To maybe update a booking or pull information about a particular upcoming tour, something like that. Other connectors, what's pretty powerful about Claude is it can also use your computer. It can access a web browser. It can help you fill out PDFs. It can read and write Apple Notes for me. It can send iMessages. Any messaging platform can be connected in. So this, and it can use your computer, meaning like you may have seen some of those examples, but it could rearrange your desktop and, get some of the clutter off. It can search your computer for certain things. And there's permissions for any given connector where you can adjust how comfortable you are with it, right? This like always allow, needs approval, or blocked. You can decide like, hey, always ask me before you take an action. What you'll quickly find is that you're shifting things, if you're anything like myself, who has a pretty high degree of confidence in these tools, to always allow, because that allows for more of that independent action. And again, depending on the tool, I'm totally fine for it to go in and read my email, right? Or search my inbox. You don't need to ask me every time you want to do that. Appify, this is a great tool for essentially connecting into other tools that allow you to do things on the web. So the biggest example for tour operators is go create an account on Appify, and it will allow you to scrape reviews. It'll allow you to scrape competitor reviews, and it just does it. It works super well. It's super cheap. Firecrawl is the other one here that I set up and I've been really enjoying, that allows me to get data from websites. In the operator case, this might be researching new products, right? Can I go and get the competitive landscape? I need to go and I want you to crawl a lot of different websites and pull in information. I used Firecrawl recently, so we just started working with a new client in France. She does multi-day private canal barge rentals and charters, right? So essentially, typically on the luxury end of the market, people are coming in and they're renting this, 7 or 8 berth or person barge, and we needed to get her entire product lineup kind of off her website or ingest her whole website. With Firecrawl, this took 5 minutes. We go in and it created a whole like Excel spreadsheet right here in Cowork. It did multiple agents. It used Firecrawl. It did this. It then parsed it, and I had in less than 5 minutes, hey, here's all the barges that she has. Here's some of the key identifiers or tags, availability, etc. So connectors, super, super important for making your AI brain more powerful. Okay, great questions. Keep them coming. Canva might be another good one. Yes. Canva, no question, is great. Figma is design. There's also this the design abilities of Cowork, and these models are getting so good. If you heard about this, but some people are talking about this SaaS apocalypse, but software as a service. So what you can do inside of these models, and especially the Claude Design is pulling ahead. The Claude Fable, this new model that was released like yesterday, spectacular design work. And so the shares of websites like Figma and of companies like Figma and even Canva we're really falling down, because we're probably moving to a world where you may not need to pay for a separate service. Does it work with Dropbox? 100%. Any workarounds for multiple accounts, for example, monitoring or accessing multiple Gmail accounts at once? They're out there. It is not as easy as just, hey, can I connect multiple Gmail accounts? But the short answer is, Nick, yes. What I would do anytime you have a question like that is go in here and ask Claude at the highest intelligence level how to do it. If you're like, hey, how can I connect Resmark into this? Hey, how can I allow you to take action on a different Gmail account? Go in there and just ask it, and it'll often walk you through the steps. It's this incredible technology that is there to help you every step of the way. I want to share kind of what this AI brain looks like, just to make that a little bit more concrete. So what do I need to do? I need to go over here and click stop share. Maybe a way to do this, a cool way, would be my Claude Cowork brain. I'm actually going to show you via Finder. Claude desktop. Okay, and the other way I could do this, yeah, we'll just do it this way for now. Keep those questions coming. Here is, let's go to a Finder window, Claude Cowork synced folder. Just to give you a sense of it, this is my Claude Cowork synced folder. The key here is, and if you are going to dive into this Claude Cowork, is we use our AI prompt. It's going to help you build out this AI brain. You can simply dump all kinds of context in. So for example, if you connect in your Dropbox, Craig, you can say, yeah, hey, can you search my Dropbox to find this particular file? That's our brand guidelines and our brand outlines. Hey, in there are our values doc. Yes, you can upload them if you want, or that's easier. Sometimes if you're like, well, this is over here in an email, or this is in Dropbox, this is over here, or sometimes you just need to verbally share it. If you have an org chart, if they're images, if they're PDFs, these models are so powerful at ingesting in a multimodal way, which simply means it can process screenshots, it can process PDFs, it can process all kinds of different documents, and then turn it into something that's faster for it to process. It does use more token usage to understand images and screenshots. So that's why we want to take that, even PDFs, and then put that into text files or markdown files. So you can see here what would be context. So it's going to do all this organization. Let's go down to, projects is one reference. All of these are essentially, I was trying to find, it's under memory. That's why. Here we go. So we have context about the business. What are all these? These are just markdown files. If I hit space, are you seeing that? No, probably not. It's just going to be the Finder window. But if I open this up, this is simply a text file that talks about our business entity, some of our business metrics, client language, some of the ways that people talk about us. That's drawn from our reviews, information about our connected tools, the devices, the domain hostings. You'll see here, I mentioned those family birthdays. A lot of information about our coaching program, quarterly priorities, tax strategy, our tech stack, super important. So if I open this up, oops, I don't want to do that, it's essentially just a text file. I think I could probably just share my screen more broadly is the best way to do this. Are we at time? Oh, we got some time. I'm happy to stick around, Nikki, if there are some, Sonnet versus Opus, great question. If we do have some additional questions. So if you want me to stick around, keep those coming. Let's just do the entire screen share. This is always usually when something exciting comes up, like, hey, your daughter just had diarrhea at school, like you need to come. All right, here we go. Share. Well, I can do this. Do I have do not disturb on? Focus mode. There you go. This is what I mean by opening it up, like with a text stack. This is all it is. It's just a text file. Now, another trick that we mention in the brain building prompt, if you go back to it, is this tool called Obsidian. And Obsidian is simply like a note-taking tool, but what's really powerful about it is it makes things look a lot, it's a lot easier to read, and I can edit. So I just point it at the folder. It's always one root folder where our AI brain lives, and then it's going to update and add, additional context, additional folders, projects. So you can see here, this was that exact project I was just telling you about. We just did this, I guess a couple of days ago now, June 9th. And so we did this research site ingest. It took their entire website and we pulled the information in, fetched. Again, I don't come into Obsidian that often, but I just wanted to show you, let me go back to memory. This is a way that's a lot easier to see what's in here. So if I want to see brand script, this is a lot easier to see it, right? Hey, the character, the client, this is our particular brand script or a brand story, right? A tour activity or experienced business owner who wants to grow their revenue, keep more profit, and build a business that doesn't depend entirely on them. But notice here, I can come in and I can just edit this. It's just a simple text file. It will save to my AI brain. This is just sort of a way to very quickly and easily see it. We can have our clients in here. We've got all the different projects that we're working on. We've got reference documents. I built out an advisor board. Like these were some of the thought leaders or advisors. So I ingested their audiobooks and created an advisor profile. So I could call on them like, hey, as this person in this role, help me with this particular project. So I just wanted to share that as an easy way to maybe just help you understand what this AI brain is all about. Last thing I should mention is just looking at the chat. Yeah, the different models, Sonnet versus Opus. Let's take a beat to talk about that. Let me share the co-work screen. Okay. So what we're talking about here is the models. Now this looks a little bit different for each tool inside of Claude Cowork. This is what this landscape looks like. Opus 4.8 or the Opus models are at least were up until yesterday, their highest intelligence layer. So during this AI brain building process, we want you to be using at minimum Opus. Fable is brand new. We'll have to talk about it for a little bit differently. It added some complexity, but basically Opus 4.8 would be the recommendation, or if they update to 4.9 or Opus 5, use Opus for the brain building and for any time you're thinking of that orchestrator role. So like I've got an outcome or a project or I want to accomplish something, I'm pretty much always starting in Opus. Sonnet is I would say capable for most daily driver tasks. So if it's like, hey, I just need to search my inbox for something, or if I need to move something from this format to this format, help me parse this document, help me do some basic analysis. Sonnet is more the workhorse, and it's cheaper and faster in lots of ways. But basically, here's the trick. No matter what I do inside of Cowork, I'm always giving it the same folder. We're always working out of that same folder. And then basically what it's doing is when it starts up that task, it's going to read those instructions. It's going to have the index and then decide if it needs to pull in that context. I can always still add files, photos or anything right there in the chat. But that's key. Haiku, I don't use very much at all. I think it's, if you're doing a lot of like just transmutation of things, I think it's for high volume users, kind of like the Flash models from Gemini. So on my day-to-day, I don't use it a lot. Fable, they just introduced yesterday. I've been playing around with it in the last 24 hours. I still like the idea of using Opus 4.8 to make a plan, but then Fable is kind of gives it this ability to run much longer, meaning like it's going to potentially overnight be able to tackle a big meaty problem for you or a multi-step process. So that's new. Their Mythos class models essentially have just been released yesterday. So hot off the presses, we'll have to see that. But Opus basically is your daily driver for a lot of this. Scheduled tasks is in here as when you can start. I just want to mention scheduled tasks and skills. So scheduled tasks is really when you can come in here and start having stuff that's happening over and over. So these are like very simple ones. This granola call processing, I use granola as a way to record every Zoom call or meet. It's just something that runs on my computer. I get the transcript. It does this beautiful AI summary. I have something twice a day that goes through and processes all the calls that I had. It pulls those transcripts in. I have a connector right to Granola, and it updates my brain accordingly. Maybe it adds new people. So I had a call yesterday with a new potential partner, and so it pulled them in, and in my brain, my AI brain, is like, oh yeah, here's who this person is. Here's the opportunity. Is this a new project? Yes or no? It's not saving everything, but it's parsing that. And so this is just something that's running in the background. I have a daily triage where I get a Slack message that's sent to me, and it's like, hey, here's all the emails that need your, it checks my inbox, it checks my Slack, it checks multiple places, it looks at my calendar, and then it's like, hey, here's the 5 things that you need to get back to. And then from that thread, I can be like, okay, hey, draft all the replies, and then they'll be in draft in Gmail, and I can go over. So hopefully you're seeing this slight shift is you get used to starting your work. I would say 70% of my day is now spent inside of Cowork. It fundamentally changes the way that you approach some of this work. These scheduled tasks are obviously running at set times or overnight, but just with these new tasks, I'm starting a lot of things in here where I used to have to bounce between all those different tools, right? Well, I have to go search Drive to find that file. Then I have to go to my inbox and look up that email. And then I need that piece of context from the calendar. I can get their email from there. Sonnet, sorry, not Sonnet, but your AI brain with those connectors can do all of that for you in like a fraction of a second. So this is where this sort of like the efficiency starts to compound and you start developing superpowers. Skills are essentially any sort of workflow, process, outcome that happens on a regular basis, meaning it happens more than once or consistently in some way. And what's really powerful about using Claude Cowork is as you build out those skills, the AI brain has already trained to recognize if something is a skill. So in Guest Focus, it's like, hey, how often do you create an invoice? I was like, well, we create them pretty regularly. Okay, let's create a skill. So it's always the same. Hey, how often do you creating slide decks? So even the slide deck that I just created here, I kind of like the style. And I said, hey, let's turn this into a skill. So anytime I want to create a slide deck, I want it to match this styling. That's a skill. For you, that might be processing payroll. It might be a tour description writing. Hey, we've got to write a new tour description. That could be a skill. And what's great about those skills inside of an AI brain, instead of just doing that one-off in a project or a chat, is the feedback gets remembered. Hey, I don't like the way this came out. Hey, you did change this. Hey, you made a mistake here. The skill is just a text file. That's all a skill is. Everyone's getting fancy, add skills, add skills. Skills are simply text files. And that are highly detailed, that give information about specific outputs, specific workflows, specific tools, specific information. And what's nice about using this AI brain model in something like Claude Cowork is that those skills can get updated and improved through time. Okay, we're 5 minutes over. Nikki, key questions that you're seeing coming through the
Yeah,
chat
there
before we
was
wrap things up.
a really good one from Sergio that I actually love. How can we migrate a lot of data projects we've done in ChatGPT to Claude Cowork? I pay for ChatGPT, but willing to stop and pay for Claude instead.
We got you covered. All right, here's how. We're going to go over to, boom, boom, boom. I think this will work. Inside of AI Brain Builder. All right, there's 2 prompts in here. The first is the AI Brain Building prompt. The second is anticipating this exactly, Sergio. It says, we have an option, and Claude was one of the first to come up with this, but you can use it for moving between any models where you've maybe done a lot of work or you have a lot of memory built up from often ChatGPT for many folks, right? But that could be in Gemini or other places. So it pulls context your AI models have already learned from past conversations, so you don't have to lose those months or potentially even years of accumulated knowledge. So if we scroll down, you'll find prompt 2. We broke it into 2A and 2B. So 2A just means like, hey, use this prompt. Again, it's just plain language. Hopefully you can read this. If not, I'll read it out. I'm moving to another AI tool and want to export everything you've stored or learned about me. List every piece of memory, context, verbatim where possible. Output it into a single code block so I can copy it in one go. It gives it some structure. So you take that and you could, Sergio, go over to ChatGPT. And then essentially you copy that entire block and you come back to your AI brain. And we just gave it a little context before you just jump that in. You say, hey, below is a raw memory export from another AI tool. So I would recommend using that first prompt to build out your AI brain. Again, if you're doing that inside of Claude Cowork, then you can bring in this raw memory export, right? And so it's hopefully that's going to be helpful for you. Keep in mind that it doesn't always help with the projects, meaning you might have specific setups inside of a project. ChatGPT's memory, again, this is the downside of it. It's like you don't know what it remembered about you. Maybe it remembered the details about that project. Almost certainly, it doesn't have all of that context in your general memory. So just keep in mind that it is likely that you'll need to use that prompt inside of 2 or 3 of those key projects that you have. If you're using projects inside of, or gems inside of Gemini or projects inside of ChatGPT, I would recommend using that prompt in there. And again, just keep in mind when you come back to Cowork, which I do highly recommend doing, Sergio, just to sort of feel the power of like having multiple agents. One of the things I love about Cowork is it's also like you can just do one thing kind of at a time, right? In ChatGPT or Claude. But when you shift to Cowork or code, you're like, I can have 5 things running at a time, and there's 5 agents working on 5 different things, and it's really wild. You're starting to appreciate just how much can get done. Usage, last thing we should probably flag, Nikki, is it's very common. Think about how intensive this process is to set up your brain and do all of this this context sort of dumping in. It's very likely that you will hit your usage limit inside Claude, especially using that smarter Opus model. expect that. And Sergio, you can bump up or down. One of the reasons I canceled that ChatGPT subscription is I'm now consistently on the Claude $100 a month, which is a 5x plan. You can go up to even 200 a month, is I think the gives you 20x usage or something like that. But you can always change this month to month, so you don't have to go in to do that. Like I said, they've got some generous extensions on their usage right now. And I would just stay focused on Opus instead of the Fable model right now, especially if you're getting this. You're like, well, Kelsey, shouldn't I just use the Fable model? The Fable model is 2 times as expensive compared to Opus. It is more powerful, but it's just not needed for this AI brain process. One of the things that I'm looking forward to doing, I'm actually going to run it tonight. So you start thinking in terms of like, when do I have usage or availability? And like overnight, you kind of have this 5-hour reset window. And so overnight, I'm going to be asking Fable, hey, have a look at my AI brain. Like, where are there gaps? How could this be improved? Overnight, I'm always trying to think of what can I trigger or set off or start so I could leverage some of the tokens or some of the AI. Think of it as fuel, right? Like we're paying for this fuel. So how can I start doing it? So I can maybe start something. Maybe it's overnight, or maybe it's just when you first get up. You're like, oh, maybe I'll start a task here. I'll go walk the dog, get the kids to school, have a shower, and then come back. And hey, some big chunk of work has already been done for you. So just shifts the way you work a little bit. Sergio, follow-up. Is Claude Cowork like Notebook LLM in some way? Totally different and used differently. Yeah, I have a lot of work in notebooks as well. Yeah, very cool. Notebook LLM is a Google product, but yeah, functions very differently. I would say, just interestingly, I used less and less of Notebook LLM because Claude Cowork, you start reducing the amount of work you do outside of your brain, right? Because as you've seen, it's now disjointed. All that stuff that I'm doing over there on Notebook LLM, I have to sort of bring it in if I want it to have access to that context, those connectors ever. That being said, Notebook LLM would be a pretty decent example of like, maybe I'm just going to have a research project over here where I'm going to take the advisor profiles that I built. Or you know what, I was researching, there was a new guy who we're considering working with, and he had a pretty active YouTube channel. We were sharing his methodology. And so I may even say that, no, I didn't use Notebook LLM. I was going to, and I was like, I'll just do this inside of Claude Cowork, and it did it just as well. But I could go over to Notebook LLM and say, hey, here's this YouTube channel. I want you to pull the last 20 transcripts from his YouTube video. I want you to scrape his website. Here it is. I want you to do some external research on it. And then what's nice about Notebook LLM is you've got all those different outputs. It's like, then turn it into like an audio overview. Hey, turn this into a report. Hey, turn this into a slide deck. What's interesting is that, all of these models are getting so good that I think it's just going to be, you won't need to go over there. It's like, I don't need to actually go to my inbox a lot of the time now, right? So anyway, hopefully that gives you some perspective, Sergio. Any other questions while you're here? Hopefully this was helpful and maybe inspiring on this document where you're getting all those different prompts. We have the AI for tour operators series where we have like just a YouTube series where we kind of go video by video and give a little more context if you want some help in setting this up. And of course, we've got, if you want to book a one-on-one call, we offer free 45-minute strategy calls. Sergio, as an example, if you want to jump on a quick call, I'm happy to answer more questions down the line. That goes for everyone.
Just going to send the link, Abby. Wow. Kelsey, thank you for staying over 14 minutes, and thank
No
you
problem.
to everybody listening for staying, with us for this long. There's just so much going on with AI. So thank you all for joining. Thank you, Kelsey. You bring so much value for tour operators. Anybody that's even just a little bit curious about working with Guest Focus or Kelsey, I definitely encourage you to book that strategy call. So it's right in the link. Let us know if you can't access it. But if you guys have any feedback from today or our future webinars, past webinars, let me know. We'd love to hear your feedback. And just so you guys know, our next webinar is going to be Greg and I on July 9th. So the invite's not out yet. The landing page isn't out, but I'll get that up soon. And we're going to be talking about like the experiencing stage of the Resmark growth engine. All right, everybody. Thank you, Kelsey. Thank you, everybody who's tuned in, and we'll see you next month on our next webinar.